3, 2, 1.
You are listening to Latino Living,
Is it recording right?
a podcast about the life of Latinos in Natchitoches, Louisiana. Este podcast es parte de HSJA and NSU. During each episode, we will share with you una historia about Hispanic living in this corner of Louisiana.
I am Alison Flores, your editor.
I am Isabel Juarez, your assistant producer.
I am Naydu Daza Maya, your host.
I'm Lia Portillo, your producer.
And this is Latino Living,
Un podcast para todos.
Hola a todos, welcome back to Latino Living. On this new season, we will bring you new stories, but we're gonna share them a little bit different so you can understand our stories a little bit better.
Yes, and we are an officially award-winning podcast. Did you know that?
Yes, I know we are an award-winning podcast now.
And we're also being supported through a grant, so sort of like a sponsorship, so we're official now.
And that's it, finally. This grant is for the Louisiana Endowment for Humanity's Rebirth Grant, which is granted to people who try to spread cultural awareness throughout the states. And we get to add more HSJM members to our team.
Yes, our family is grand, but for us to really explain to other people our culture, what we need to do is sort of understand how they already view us.
Okay, yeah, and this brings us to today. Our topic for today is gonna be Latino as a trend. All of these trends that we see scrolling on social media. We want to address all the good, the bad that these trends has given to our heritage. But to understand more, we need to talk with Dr. Taylor, nuestro expert.
The trend is generally something that a culture begins to follow and begins to believe has some type of value, whether it's superficial value such as, pop music or way people dress, or deep, true value such as religious beliefs and things like that. So trends come, trends go. Some trends stay for a long time. Some trends last a couple of weeks.
Those trends that he's talking about are more like numerical, trends of like people coming into the country and stuff like that. But what we're focusing on today is sort of how these trends are spreading through social media. Naydu, what's a trend, either a Hispanic trend or Colombia trend that you see a lot in social media?
Well, we have positive and negative trends. One of the trends I have seen on social media, especially for, Colombia, is that how women are supposed to look like, how women are supposed to dress, how you're supposed to look as a Colombian, as Latina. Because, social media may or may have not show us another perspective of how all Latinas should look like. And another point that I have also seen, this one is probably not a positive trend, it's probably bad. But when it comes to Colombia, a trend that you see happening a lot is Colombia being known for drugs and Pablo Escobar, which is, people will tell it to your face. And I have actually had people asking me about it last week. So it's something that is still happening, regardless of how many Grammys, of how many artists Colombia can produce. People are still remembering what happened more than 50 years ago. So I think this is a really negative trend, but it is where it is and it keeps happening.
Right, it's sort of like a double-edged sword because we're sort of getting Colombia has the spotlight because of the many artists that it has, but it also brings a negative connotation of the negative ways that people view us. So it sort of kind of hinders us from actually growing and actually being growing.
Yeah, so while we were given the spotlight to be in the biggest screen of Hollywood, for the first time we had to be the bad guys. Now we have Dr. Taylor showing about the roles that Latinos have been given in the biggest screen throughout the time.
Speedy Gonzalez, Flaco, I forget the little there a kids cartoon where there was a skinny drunk mouse was one. I forget his name, but even in the cartoons, Hispanics were treated as negative. It's not until the 60s where we start seeing the Chicano movement. And people really started demanding, hey, you're going to respect us as more than just, caricature.
I think that this is sort of a backhanded spotlight that they've given us. because it sort of ruined our image for the younger generation. And now we have to expect ourselves to see ourselves in movie roles that are sort of like, you know, like novelas. Everyone like understands what novelas are, you know, Hispanic soap operas. But this sort of like projection that we had on television rooted what toxic Latinas are now.
I know the toxic Latina has played into the way how Americans, people from other countries see us, but not also them, but also Latin America, how Latinas are being viewed, how Latinas are being perceived across, I don't know, worldwide. And pues these trends coming from the misunderstanding of the cultural differences. So yeah, now I'm gonna ask you a question. How many times have your accent still been questioned?
Literally all the time, and I've been here 10 years.
Exactly. And rather than accepting that there is no way a bilingual person can have a perfect accent, people still continue to remind us all of our differences. This is how many immigrants you see them as professors, as professional people on their fields, but they are still being questioned why their accent is not an American accent or British accent or some sort of accent that doesn't come from your Hispanic accent. So that's kind of impossible to get. Maybe some people can achieve it, but not everyone. And you should also be proud of having an accent because you can speak two languages. Well, yeah, this is what many immigrants, some who are professors, experience, which is why graphic designer Professor Mirla and I talked about.
In this population inside the university, I see the Latinos have influenced, have touched, the life, the way of this university to be presented, right? And for example, one of the reasons is music. We have a lot of Hispanic students that are part of the, music program, and then they are the face of the university, and then they are out there, and then you have Gala, for example, which is a subject that is American, in the tradition of the United States, but you see that sometimes they're introducing salsa and Latino, little touch, because we have a lot of Hispanic here in this university. So I see it as something, as a phenomenon that is beautiful, where the culture, which are mostly the students, integrate with each other.
Me encanta su punto. I really like her point that she talked to you about how international students really influence our culture. But I think it's with this influence that some people think that because they have this community that the international students are giving, that, it's still okay for them to view us as the stereotypes that they know. So, we have to address it, Naydu.
Well, so what point? Can you explain to us a little bit better which one you're talking about?
The perceptions of Latinas, the perfect Latina, like, in social media, in movies, in songs, you see that Latina, not only do we have the toxic Latina trend, but we have the perfect Latina trend. And it's sort of like, am I not good enough if I don't look like Shakira?
Sí. Mirla was actually talking to us about the sexualization of Latinas that comes from the big screen, from social media, and how that is applied into our real life. Let's hear what Mirla has to say.
You're talking about this hot topic about, how Latino women are seeing, and Cuban. And I never called myself before a Latina. I call myself just Cuban. I'm from the Caribbean, now, how people see Latinas as toxic, as, I think that's kind of like a statement. Oh. Well, culture, yeah, there is a big difference, right? But I think there is a statement that is mostly spread through social media. And social media is very toxic. I don't say that, Latino women are toxic. No, social media can be very dangerous because for some reason people find some enjoyment in looking at all this problematic situation. That's a whole other subject, when people get hooked up, on the phone, seeing what is happening. But, I get it, like they say, no, Latinas are toxic, they gel a lot.
Yes, and to sort of add to her thoughts, I feel like this trend is like we've also influenced it, no? Because when I was in Honduras and I was looking at novelas and just TV over there, they're also sort of portraying the same characters that have to be fair, light skinned, otherwise they weren't viewed as pretty or they weren't viewed as, as worthy, or like there never was someone that sort of looked like me in the screen. So I feel like while we can say that Americans have influenced this, I also feel like we are our own fault with our cultural, customs that we also sort of influence this.
This is all for today. This is it. And remember, this is Latino Living, un podcast para todos. Bye.